Kenya is watching. Of course, this discussion will culminate in the launching of the 10 new sites that will be happening tomorrow. We'll be giving you those details in a bit. But before we get to that, Kenya was among the first African countries to embark on this digital migration journey back in 2009 with the launching of the first digital distributor, that is Signet. Maybe Dr. Bilal, you could take us back and help us understand how that journey has been and where we stand so far.
Thank you. Good morning, Jane, and good morning, Kenya. Indeed.
Yes.
As you have heard from the feature that just ran, the digital migration process in Kenya has come a long way since 2006. The planning process in Kenya started in 2006. Kenyans may want to know that Kenya is a member state of the ITU, International Telecommunications Union, and was party to an agreement that committed all member states of ITU to migrate from analog to digital with a deadline of June 2015. But Kenya set for itself a more ambitious goal of actually achieving that migration by 2012.
Yeah.
And the idea was to achieve a much higher audiovisual quality and also content diversity. And that led, a series of events led to the establishment of the Signet platform that will be launching 10 sites tomorrow. Briefly, that is the story of Kenya and the migration process.
All right. Now, let me come to you, Mr. Kanyi, just trying to understand this shift between analog and digital. Maybe for some, we don't really understand the technical bits when it comes to the shift between analog and digital. Maybe you could just help us briefly understand what this has even meant for Kenya so far.
Okay. Technology evolves along the way. It's a journey where we are searching quality. So in the radio industry, the digital techniques matured, and it became necessary to bring them to application. So as far as the television is concerned, previously the techniques that were used were affecting frequencies such that we were getting very few channels. So over the years, the development arose where it became necessary to shift. And once the technology matured, then the benefits were very clear. In digital format, we could get more channels per frequency. We could also get much higher quality. And that meant that it was very important for us to shift.
Okay. All right. Now, let me come to you, Mr. Gonzalez. We'll go with your second name. It's much easier. Now, you work with APD, which is the Spanish contractor that partnered with Signet to just bring to life these 10 new sites that will be commissioned tomorrow. Maybe tell us a bit about, what your organization does in line with being keeping up with the digital transmission.
Yeah, our organization is it's a Spanish company. We come from Spain, and we specialize in different sectors, one of which is telecommunications.
Yes.
So this project with Signet and the KBC was funded by the Spanish government. So the technology should come from Spain. So, and our role was to integrate under our umbrella the technologies and efforts of different Spanish manufacturers, from the, of course, transmitters of TV up to the transmission towers, all the radiating systems, and even the accommodation of the sites. So, as main contractor, we took the responsibility to take care of all the aspects of the project, from, accommodation of the sites all the way up to the launching of the TV signal.
Which will be happening tomorrow.
Yes.
Now, let me come to you, Dr. When we talk about, the impact that this shift has had in the country, maybe, come on, Manisha, they might not understand or really feel it, but from what we have seen so far, maybe you could just help us understand some of those benefits and the impact that has been felt with this transition from analog to digital, considering 75% has been covered so far?
Yes. Actually, part of that answer has been given by my colleague Kanye here. The thing about freeing the spectrum, led to what you call digital dividend.
Yes.
Where we have managed to free a lot of capacity. To my understanding, it's more than 200 megahertz that was freed to be repurposed for other services like mobile services, specifically like 4G. Apart from that, I was looking at a report by one of our industry partners, the Telecommunications Management Group, that was produced in 2017. Of course, a lot has happened since. But you may want to know that pre-migration, the population of Kenyans that was watching free-to-air television was about 55%. As we speak today, with the addition of 10 sites, we are estimating that about 76% of Kenyans are now watching free-to-air television.
Yes.
The number of broadcasters free-to-air pre-migration, according to that report, was around 14. Now it is our estimate we have got about 80, possibly more. Then broadcasters who have a presence in various cities in Kenya, pre-migration there were about 5. Right now we estimate we got more than 40, 35 to 40. Siaya is yet to undertake the latest new analysis of the market, but the industry estimates are quite realistic and reasonable, because the content, rather the signal distributors are well known. There are about 2. That is us and our partner, our rival, if you want to make it PAN. So in between us, we've got about 80 broadcasters, and that is a rise from 5. You may, as I've indicated, want to know that the consumption of the spectrum pre-migration was about 448 megahertz. Now it has come down to 224 by broadcasters. So that does give you an indication of how much benefit this has brought to Kenyans. Overall, Kenyans have a wider choice in terms of content. There is diversity, and there is greater audiovisual quality in the picture that and audio Kenyans are receiving, consumers are receiving.
All right.
Yes.
And also, Mr. Kanye, from an infrastructure point of view, the impact that has been felt over the years with this shift so far, in terms of the coverage that we have had so far, what impact has been felt in an infrastructural point of view?
Yes, with digital migration, the industry had to be reformatted.
Yes.
Previously, every broadcaster needed to set up their own infrastructure. But by nature, digital broadcasting allows multi-channels on one frequency, and also uses the same equipment. So where we require an equipment we call a transmitter, it used to carry only one channel. So for instance, KB channel 1 would require one transmitter. But with one transmitter today, we are able to package 24 channels. We are able to carry most of the broadcasters on one frequency, one transmitter, same infrastructure. So the same infrastructure now has become, has been applied now more efficiently, and that has reduced the cost for the upstarters. That's what has enabled more broadcasters to come into the market. So the rollout is much cheaper. If we would have attempted to do this one during the analog period, it would have been way too expensive to do what we are doing today. So today we are able to package on Signet 24 channels, which has we rebroadcast them across the country, and that really enables the public. Previously, they could only reach KBC channel in the far-flung areas, but now Signet packages them as one bouquet and delivers them to every corner of the Republic. So the wide choice, the lower cost in the industry, that's what has encouraged the content providers. This enables now the industry to have more players. There is a variety for the viewing public, and of course there is opportunity for employment.
Yes, for most people. Now, Dr. You know, when it comes to levels of awareness among the public and also from the broadcaster side when it comes to keeping up with content, because that also one of the challenges that had been mentioned in that feature, do you think we are keeping up with the times, especially with this digital transition?
Actually, one of the biggest challenges to the adoption or public acceptance of the digital migration initiative was lack of adequate awareness. And I must say we as the industry did not drive that campaign effectively. It is now a challenge to the industry, not just to Signet, but to all broadcasters to be able to sensitize the public, create awareness among the public about the dividends, about the importance, the benefits, because they are seeing it. Content diversity, the visual quality, and all the benefits that it has brought. We have a challenge to make the public understand much better why this was necessary and why it's important and what benefits it has brought to Kenyans.
All right. Yes. Mr. Kanye, maybe you could tell us what more is being done to ensure that coverage still remains a priority. Even now, we both have free-to-air and pay-per-view TV. You know, there's an article that I was reading that most Kenyans prefer to go for pay-per-view options as opposed to the free-to-air because, you know, free-to-air might not be as available to most, especially those in the remote areas.
Yes, the government is rolling out this infrastructure, and of course, reasonably, they started with the high population density areas. And the beauty of this project that we are launching tomorrow is addressing the areas that were underserved and other areas that have never watched terrestrial television, areas like Maralal, Hola, Lamu, Wajir. So those areas that actually, even during the analog period, they were not watching terrestrial television. Most of them rely on satellite television, which the setup for domestic reception is quite expensive, and most of it, of course, pay TV is still not very popular with the public in certain areas. So the government is rolling this one. It's a gradual process. So there is a clear roadmap. By 2022, we hope to have reached most of the population areas. We still have some areas in the Republic who have not been able to be reached. But that's why it's so stage by stage we'll reach those areas.
All right. And maybe Mr. Gonzalez, just looking at, your farm, based in Spain, and, in terms of the technology that is being brought on board to ensure that the digital transition does continue to be as effective as it's supposed to be. What are some of those ideas that are being borrowed from your side to just incorporate them with this project?
Well, the technology is a mature technology, so it's something that has been extended throughout the world. We are talking the VVT2 standard, which is a norm comparable to the Japanese, which is another type of technology. What we have achieved with time is to cut the cost of the equipment, so that in the last maybe 3, 4, 5 years, the cost per site has cut down to maybe 30%, by 30%. So, and this is enabling partners of us as Signet just to cope with these investment projects. Okay, so of course, there is plenty of things to do, not only here in Kenya but also in Spain. We have to procure. We have to make sure that the technology makes available to all broadcasters, so that the penetration of TV is more prevalent in the general public, which is not, up to the objectives that we have at the moment.
All right. So, now, Dr. Bilal, when it comes to the coverage, a lot is involved when it comes to setting up this site, and maybe you could just give us a brief or overview of what is involved when it comes to the resource, especially when it comes to setting up of these sites to just ensure that coverage does not become a problem.
Oh yes, setting up really one transmission site is a very costly undertaking, and that's why a wholesale approach as a country to having like designated broadcast signal distributors is the only way to go. It can cost you anything up to 100 million shillings to set up a single site, apart from the transmission towers, the transmitters, the surrounding infrastructure and associated facilities. And I'm sure my colleague Kenya here would know much better, and Mr. Gonzalez here, that it's a very costly venture if we were to leave it to individual broadcasters. And that, the evidence that you're seeing, like now on the Signet platform, we are unable to satisfy the demand in Kenya. That is where we are embarking on the process of actually doubling that capacity. We are in the process of doubling our Signet capacity to be able to accommodate more broadcasters, because we have got very many in our waiting list. So that does give you an indication that the fact that the signal distribution has been taken over by specific signal distributors with the capacity for the required investment is a major relief to broadcasters.
Yes.
I don't know whether you may want to add something in relation to the cost of setting up these sites, Mr. Gonzalez or my colleague Kenya.
Let's start with you, Mr. Kenya, especially from a technical point of view in terms of the infrastructure involved in just setting up one site, and now that we have 10 that are going to be commissioned.
Yes, it's quite expensive, and you need to do a lot of coordination. The siting is also a regulated activity. That's why we talked about International Telecommunication Union. So you must locate the site at a designated place within the coordinates, the geographical coordinates. So that is coordinated by ITU, because radio communication really does not respect international borders. So that's why we have to do it internationally. So we have to coordinate with our neighbors. Plus, then acquiring land is also not an easy affair. And we may find that, like now, as we extend to cover the population that is not reached, you go to very remote places where there is no infrastructure. Setting up a broadcast infrastructure requires other support infrastructure. You require electricity, you require roads, and all that. So it is quite an expensive thing. Luckily, because the equipment we have now it manages to have such high capacity. That's why the industry had to be reorganized, so that we have the infrastructure provision companies and the broadcasters who are content service providers.
Okay.
The advantage is that the technical part of it, it's a highly tested technology. It has been negotiated across the world. It's a standard that is applied across the whole world. So it is very high standard. You get the same quality. So the element that we need now to develop as a country is actually the content part. The content part is creativity, and it's an industry where people need to compete. That area is still not that very developed. That's why you hear of people preferring to go to the pay TV because they have coordinated their bouquet such that, you know, it addresses various tastes. But our platform is government platform. It is free to any broadcaster. It's accessible to any broadcaster without any discrimination. But then the content industry needs to reorganize so that we can have high quality content on the platform.
All right. And also, Mr. Gonzalez, your thoughts on the same when it comes to the resources that are involved and how intense this whole process has been in just setting up one site, and the fact that, you know, you're going to be commissioning 10 of them, and what this means for our nation. Yeah, well, it has been a quite intense process, as you said, from the manufacturing of the equipment, acceptance tests in Spain, to shipping, import, all logistics, and so on and so forth. So yeah, it requires close coordination between, in this case, the KBC and ourselves, and our umbrella, many local companies here in Kenya, and as well as manufacturers in Spain. So, well, we've learned a lot from the process. We are sure that in the future, if there's another opportunity to continue to develop this kind of infrastructure in Kenya, we'll be in a much better position to do a better job in a shorter period of time. And, well, I believe as well that the prices are going to be getting down and down with, as the technology, as I said before, gets more and more mature. All right. All right. Now, Dr. Bilal, when it comes to this whole digital transition journey that we are on, you know, there's so many different stakeholders that come into play, and we all have a role to play to just ensure that this transition is as successful as it was intended to be. Now, Signet is just one of these platforms that are actually at the forefront to champion for this transmission. But what more do you feel, you know, institutions like the government, other broadcasters, and even the Common 190 can do to just help ease in this process?
Thank you, Jane. When you consider the cost of investing in this technology, it's quite difficult in light of the priorities the government has. Yes. Much as digital migration remains a priority, there are very many competing demands on the government. And it would be a very good thing to have partners, to have donors. Like, we really remain, you know, quite appreciative of the support we got from the Spanish government. To be nice to have partners, development partners coming forward to support this digital migration process. Over and above that, for broadcasters, so that this process is successful, as my colleague Kanye has indicated, do not go into broadcasting without a clear plan, without a clear strategy. You need to think through the kind of content that you are going to deliver to consumers. Being on the Signet platform or any other platform for signal distribution is not a very cheap affair, because you'll be charged either monthly or quarterly. So broadcasters need to think through their content and give their best, and for the public to appreciate that digital migration meant and still means well. All right. And also, I'd quickly like for you to speak in regards to how this commission and with these 10 new sites also is in line with the agenda for the country, the president's agenda for, especially when it comes to employment creation. Yes. Apart from employment creation, actually, you realize that access to information by the public is one strand that runs across the 4 agenda items, the big 4 agenda items. And it's very important that once we, as the government rolls out its projects within the ambit of the big 4, then the communication, public access to information component must be mainstreamed, and we have seen it happening, that we've got a major national committee that has mainstreamed communication in this regard. So the project we are undertaking, when you consider that we are going to be covering in our assessment, we are going to be covering, you know, cumulatively about 800 square kilometers of new coverage, because each site has like 80 kilometers radius in terms of coverage. It is going to be a major boost to public access to information, and that is very much well in line with the government agenda and its own constitutional obligations in terms of public access to information.
Yes, Mr. Khan, your thoughts as well with how this project intertwines very well with the Big Four agenda for the country, so that it's not just a Signet thing, it's not just a KBC thing, but it's a countrywide thing.
Yeah, Signet is a public platform where we are facilitating. It's an enabler for the industry. So really, and the industry actually comes up with the creative element and the employers who are the investors. So as far as employment is concerned, it's going to be a major role. The other element is that information is power, and the public needs the information and the right information. This is a forum where the government is able to sensitize the public, and those areas that are underserved or they are not reached by through communication, especially broadcasting, they are actually they would not be enticed to participate in the national goals. So this project really helps to that, and that's why we look forward to the extension of this, so that every corner of the republic. It's unfortunate that there are still some areas that are not able to access broadcasting, and noting that the government put this instrument purposely to enable communication and especially broadcasting to reach every Mwananchi within the republic.
All right. Now, we have been talking about, the commissioning of 10 new sites happening in Kenya, but maybe you might be wondering what it's all about, and maybe Dr. Bilal, you could just come in and just let us know what is this commissioning that will be happening tomorrow?
Yes.
Yes, tell us a bit more about it.
Yes, thank you, Jane. Since 2013, Signet has been implementing this project. We call it the DVB-T2. So far, 10 sites are established over and above the previous capacity. That does give you an idea that we are going to have a very wide national coverage.
Yes.
Those sites are now fully functional, they are operational, and they are transmitting at full power. As you have heard from the feature that ran, we are 2.3 kilowatts on each site, and that is great capacity. Tomorrow we shall be launching those sites in Kitui at a place called Siaya. That function will be at 11 a.m. There will be important guests, including the ambassador of Spain.
Yes.
So we thought this is important for Kenyans to know that 10 new sites have been added to the Signet capacity.
And what does this mean for you? And common Mwananchi out there, because you just hear 10 sites, but what does it really mean when it comes to coverage?
Yes, it means that Mama Mboga in Wajir, who never used to receive free-to-air television, to understand what the government is doing, what other players in the economy are doing, how the country is faring. These people are now able to be part and parcel of Kenya. They will be able to get information from various broadcasts, not just KBC, and they will be integrated fully. They are part and parcel of Kenya. They are able to know what's happening. Yes. That is what it means.
All right. And Mr. Kanye, just looking at these 10 new sites, what are some of those factors that set these areas ripe for commissioning and having these sites located there?
Okay, as I indicated earlier, of course, when we started the rollout, we had to start somewhere.
Yes.
We started with the high density population areas. So most of the major municipalities, about 20 of them, that's where the rollout, 2013, when we switched off analog, that's where it happened. But we realized that due to other factors, there were some corners of the republic that were not accessing so we looked at the areas that were underserved. And therefore, we looked at a gradual containment of that, and that's why we are moving on to ensure that we reach every corner of the republic. So you will find the areas where there are probably terrain issues. They were being blocked, and the population there were not able to access. So that's why we looked at that. It's actually a roadmap. So we mapped the very high density population areas. Okay. So the cost per the cost to provide the service is much cheaper at high population areas. If you put one transmitter in Nairobi, you could access 5 million at a go. But if you go, the more you go to the sparsely populated areas, one transmitter, the 80-kilometer radius, probably will only be accessing 5,000 people. But those people also is an obligation of the government to get the service. So we are continuing, and we will continue until everyone is covered.
All right. Yes. And what does this mean for your organization, being involved in such a countrywide project that impacts so many people?
Yeah, it's something very special as well. Yeah. As my colleagues were telling, I mean, the feeling of being part of something bigger than you is very important in every human being's life. I've been based abroad many years, so I used to spend time with my fellow countrymen because we share the same background. We come from the same place, we relate to the same food, same, quarreling about politics. That's very important. It's a very meaningful part of everyone's life.
Yes.
And having the opportunity to allow the countryside, the Kenyan citizens, to get access to this common background that is linking them to the rest of the country is a very special feeling that we have. Yeah.
All right. Now, as we bring the conversation to close, maybe Dr. Bilal, you could just let us know what more is expected after the commissioning of this 10 new sites, and especially the role of the Mwananchi in this regard.
Yes. I'll start with moving forward. We are determined to make Signet the national point of reference as a broadcast signal distributor. I have indicated that we are doubling its capacity, meaning that we are able to have a lot more broadcasters on our site. We shall also be urging that public or rather resources are mobilized to ensure that we do the last mile. We still have about 25 or more, about 25% of Kenyans who are still not covered by free-to-air television. And it is going to be quite important that we try, that at least the government can play a lead role in mobilizing resources, either from development partners or from within itself, to ensure that Kenya is covered 100% for the benefit of all Kenyans. That is where we want to go.
All right.
Yes.
And with Mr. Kanyi, in regards to just keep forging and championing the way forward, your thoughts?
Yes, I think the industry now is mature. It's for us to reap the fruits. So it's for the content industry to be more creative, to use the platform. You have seen what is happening in the mobile industry. Creative people are coming up with applications and driving them over those platforms.
Yes.
So there is a lot more for creative young people to use on the digital platform. There is room for very creative content. You can do electronic marketing. You can do, there are many other services. There are other services called value-add services that can ride on the platform. We have opportunity. We used to do school broadcast and such stuff. We have seen an attempt to put programs on education, but with this platform, you can have full channels which can be taken over by educational institutions. You can do telemedicine. There are so many opportunities, and we know our Kenyans are very creative. So it's a challenge to them to come on now, since we are almost reaching the entire country, and come up with creative solutions for various communication issues.
So we need to step up, especially when it comes to content.
Exactly.
All right. Your thoughts as well when it comes to just everyone coming on board and championing for these good projects that we are hoping to bring to life?
Well, these kind of projects are the result of a joint effort. It's not only about the technology, which is mature at the moment.
Yes.
It's not only about the needs, which are there, but it's also about putting together all the resources you are able to. And supporting the Kenyan government, I'm proud to say that we rely on also the support of the Spanish government, enabling financing tools in very competitive terms that hopefully will help the way forward with this kind of technologies here in Kenya.
Yes, there we have it. We have to keep this digital transition happening. This is what we have been talking about, the state of the digital transition here in Kenya. We have come so far, but there's still more that needs to be done. Remember, there will be the commissioning of 10 new sites that will be happening tomorrow in Kitui, area called Siaya. So if you are around that area, you can go and be part of that event, be part of this phenomenal change that will be happening. Remember, Signet is a subsidiary of the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation that broadcasts and distributes signals. So be part of this movement and help the nation continue transitioning to that digital phase. Well, I have been speaking with Dr. Naim Bilal, who is the Managing Director of the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation. Thank you very much.
Asante.
At the center, we have Mr. Kanyi Kishane, who is the Technical Service Manager still at the Broadcasting Corporation. Karibu sana.
Thank you.
And to my immediate left, we have Quinido Gonzalez, who is an international business developer working with APD, which is a Spanish contractor who have partnered with Signet for this project. Thank you very much for being with us. Now that brings us to a close of this discussion, but you can keep interacting with us. Good Morning Kenya is not over. The hashtag still remains Good Morning Kenya on Twitter. My handle is Ajenu and our official station handle is at KBC Television. SMS number 20154. Leave a name and location. We would love to know where you're watching us from and how you are enjoying the show so far. So do stay with us. We'll be right back after this break.